Nothing prepared me for hearing my son's fiancée call me a worthless peasant in Chinese. I'm Thomas Brooks, and I thought I was helping plan my only son's dream wedding. What Rosalind didn't know was that I spent 5 years doing business in Beijing, spoke fluent Mandarin, and had quietly given my son over $200,000 for his independent adult life. Her assumption that I was just another ignorant American dad was about to cost her the $150,000 wedding of her dreams. That Saturday evening at Bella Vista restaurant, as she leaned over to her mother and whispered, "This old man is such a cheap farmer," I sat there calmly, translated every word in my head, and made a decision that would change our family forever. If you're watching this, please subscribe and let me know where you are watching from. Here's how one dinner conversation exposed 3 years of lies and taught my son what respect really costs. 6 months earlier, wedding planning had turned into a battlefield I never saw coming. It started innocently enough. Ryan brought Rosalind over for Sunday dinner in December, excitement written all over his face. "Dad, we want to set a date, June 10th next year." I smiled, genuinely happy. "That's wonderful. Have you thought about the budget?" Rosalind's expression shifted slightly. "We're thinking of something elegant, traditional. Ryan deserves the best." "Of course," I said. "What kind of numbers are we looking at?" 75,000 for the venue, 25 for catering, 15 for photography." She rattled off figures like a shopping list. "Maybe another 20 for flowers, music, miscellaneous." $135,000. I did the math quickly. "That's significant. Let's see what we can work out." That's when I caught the first Chinese comment. Rosalind turned to Ryan, speaking what she thought was a secret language. "He's too stingy." I kept my face neutral. Said nothing. Over the following weeks, the comments escalated. During Christmas dinner, after I gave her a thoughtful cookbook from a local chef, she smiled sweetly and said thank you. Then, under her breath to Ryan, "Cheap gift." I watched Ryan nod sympathetically. At my birthday dinner in February, when I suggested a nice restaurant instead of the expensive steakhouse she wanted, another comment, "Poor person mentality." Each time I documented everything. I started keeping a small notebook. Dates, exact phrases, translations. I told myself I was being paranoid, but the pattern was clear. Rosalind had decided I was beneath her family's standards, and worse, she was training my son to see me the same way. The breaking point came during a family gathering at my house in March. Rosalind walked through my living room, taking in my modest furniture, my 10-year-old television, my practical Honda Civic visible through the window. She whispered to her mother, who had joined us for dinner, "Look how shabby this place is." I was in the kitchen, supposedly out of earshot, but I heard every word. That night, I opened a new document on my computer. Rosalind, pattern of disrespect. I started typing everything I could remember. Every slight, every assumption, every Chinese insult she thought I couldn't understand. The text messages came next. Ryan left his phone on my counter while helping with dishes. A notification popped up from Rosalind. "Your dad is being difficult about the wedding costs again. So embarrassing." Ryan's response, "I know. I'll talk to him." I photographed the screen before he returned. 2 weeks later, another text exchange appeared when Ryan was in the bathroom. Rosalind to her friend Gina, "Ryan's dad is so cheap, making us compromise on everything. My friends are getting amazing weddings and I'm stuck with this." More screenshots for my growing file. By April, I had 3 months of documented evidence. Not just the Chinese insults, but a pattern of manipulation. Rosalind was systematically turning my son against me, using my practical lifestyle as proof that I didn't care about his happiness. The irony was staggering. She had no idea what I'd already given Ryan, the $180,000 house down payment I'd transferred in March, the $35,000 I'd quietly paid off his car loan the previous September, the countless smaller gifts and supports that had made his independent life possible. Rosalind saw my humility as weakness. My practical choices have limitations. My quiet generosity was absent. She was about to learn the difference between being unable to afford something and choosing not to enable bad behavior. But first, I needed to understand exactly how far this disrespect would go. The stakes weren't just about money. They were about losing my son forever. Rosalind's influence over Ryan had been subtle but steady. I watched him change over 3 years of dating her. The grateful young man who used to thank me for family dinners became someone who expected them. The son who called every Sunday started calling every other week, then monthly. Dad, Rosalind thinks we should focus on building our own family traditions, he'd explained when he missed Thanksgiving. Translation, Rosalind thought my traditions weren't sophisticated enough. If I confronted this pattern directly, I risked looking like the jealous father who couldn't let go. Rosalind had positioned herself perfectly. Any criticism of her behavior would seem like an attack on Ryan's happiness. Any boundary I set would be evidence of my controlling nature. The financial implications were massive, too. The $150,000 wedding was just the beginning. I'd already reviewed her Pinterest boards, her saved Instagram posts. Rosalind wasn't planning a marriage. She was planning a lifestyle. The house upgrade she wanted. The luxury car she'd hinted about. The European honeymoon she'd bookmarked. She saw Ryan as her ticket to a better life, and she saw me as the obstacle to funding it. But the deeper cost was my reputation within our family and social circle. Rosalind had been careful to plant seeds of doubt about my character. Tom means well, but he's just very practical, she'd tell relatives. Some people show love differently. The implication was clear. I was emotionally distant, financially limited, culturally unsophisticated. My late wife Jennifer would have seen through Rosalind immediately. She'd had a gift for reading people, especially women who put on performances. But Jennifer had been gone 3 years now, and I was navigating this alone. If I stayed silent, Rosalind would escalate. The Chinese insults would get worse. The financial demands would increase. Ryan would drift further away, convinced that his father simply didn't understand what modern families needed. But if I revealed what I knew, the translations, the documented disrespect, the evidence of manipulation, I had to be prepared for nuclear fallout. Ryan might choose Rosalind over me entirely. She'd paint me as the paranoid father who secretly recorded conversations and invaded their privacy. Our extended family might see me as the bitter widower who couldn't accept his son's happiness. The wedding cancellation would be just the opening shot. Rosalind would demand Ryan cut contact entirely. I'd become the cautionary tale, the father who lost his only child because he couldn't mind his own business. Yet continuing to enable this behavior felt like betraying everything Jennifer and I had taught Ryan about respect, gratitude, and character. The real question wasn't whether I could afford the $150,000 wedding. The question was whether I could afford to let my son marry someone who fundamentally despised his family. The wedding planning meeting that changed everything happened on a rainy Thursday evening in April. Rosalind had requested a serious financial discussion at my house. She arrived with a 3-inch binder, tabbed sections color-coded by category. Ryan followed her in, looking uncomfortable but resigned. "Tom, we need to finalize numbers," Rosalind announced, settling into my living room chair like she was conducting a board meeting. "The venue requires confirmation by Friday." She opened the binder with dramatic flair. Page 1, Bellaterra Gardens, their signature package for $150,000. "This includes everything," she explained, sliding glossy photos across my coffee table. "Ceremony space, reception hall, premium catering for 200 guests, full bar service, bridal suite, ceremony coordination." I studied the contract carefully. Every detail was first class. Every option was the most expensive available. "It's beautiful," I said honestly. "But that's a significant investment." "Investment in what?" Rosalind's tone sharpened. "In your son's happiness? In starting our marriage properly?" "Investment in financial responsibility," I replied calmly. Ryan shifted uncomfortably. "Dad, this is really important to us." "I understand. But let's discuss what's realistic." Rosalind flipped to page 2. "Here's what Ryan and I can contribute." A spreadsheet showed their combined savings, $14,000. "So you're expecting me to cover $136,000? I asked. "Ryan deserves better than a backyard barbecue wedding," Rosalind said. "Deserves based on what criteria?" "Based on normal family expectations." "Define normal." Her jaw tightened. "Tom, most parents want their children to have memorable weddings. Most parents also teach their children about living within their means." "Are you saying we're being unreasonable?" "I'm saying we should explore options that work for everyone's budget." Rosalind turned to Ryan, speaking in what she thought was her secret language. "Your dad is really selfish." I kept my expression neutral. Interesting perspective. Ryan looked between us, sensing tension but missing the actual insult. Dad, maybe we could look at financing options? Financing a wedding. I raised an eyebrow. Starting a marriage with debt. Other couples do it, Rosalind interjected. It's completely normal. What other couples do isn't my concern. What my son does is... Rosalind's control started slipping. This is ridiculous. We're talking about one day. One important day that sets the tone for our entire future. Exactly. What tone do you want to set? That we're worthy of celebration. That our families support us. I do support you. But support doesn't mean unlimited funding. She turned to Ryan again. He doesn't care about your happiness at all. That's not true, Ryan said, though he clearly didn't understand what had prompted his response. What's not true? I asked quietly. Ryan hesitated. Just, Dad, this feels like you're making this harder than it needs to be. How am I making it harder? By questioning everything, by acting like we're asking for something crazy. Rosalind sensed an opening. Tom, let me be direct. This wedding represents Ryan's place in the world, his status, his worth. When people attend this ceremony, they're seeing what kind of family he comes from. What kind of family do you think he comes from? I think he comes from a family that's... She paused, choosing words carefully. Conservative, practical to a fault. And what kind of family do you come from? Her eyes flashed. A family that believes in celebrating life's important moments properly. Properly according to whose standards? According to anyone with standards, Tom. The insult hung in the air. Ryan looked shocked at her tone. I see, I said calmly. So your position is that $150,000 represents having standards, and anything less represents having no standards. I'm saying that when you love someone, you want to give them the best. What's the best way to show love, Rosalind? Through money or through respect? Through both, she said without hesitation. And what happens when those two things conflict? They don't have to conflict, not unless someone chooses to make them conflict. I leaned back, studying her carefully. You're absolutely right. Someone is choosing to make them conflict. Ryan looked confused. What does that mean? It means, I said slowly, that we have very different definitions of respect. Rosalind straightened, sensing she was losing ground. Tom, I'm going to be direct with you. Ryan and I are planning this wedding with or without your support, but we'd prefer to have your blessing and your help. And if I can't provide both, then you're choosing to be absent from one of the most important moments of your son's life. The ultimatum crystallized everything. Support her demands completely, or be painted as the neglectful father who abandoned his child's happiness. Ryan stared at his hands, clearly torn between loyalty to his father and pressure from his fiancée. I made a decision. Rosalind, I said quietly, I think there are some things about this family that you need to understand better. Such as? Such as the difference between being unable to afford something and being unwilling to enable it. She frowned. What's that supposed to mean? It means, I said, that maybe it's time we had a more complete conversation about expectations and reality. The air in the room shifted. Something in my tone had changed. That's when Rosalind made her biggest mistake. She turned to Ryan and whispered, I think your dad completely doesn't understand respect. I looked directly at her. Actually, Rosalind, I understand respect perfectly. Two things happened that week that Rosalind completely missed but would change everything. The first was a phone call I received Wednesday morning while Ryan and Rosalind were at my house discussing flower arrangements. We were sitting in my kitchen, surrounded by catalogs and price lists, when my phone rang. The caller ID showed an international number, plus 86 138 001324 68, Beijing. Excuse me, I said, stepping into the hallway. I should take this. I answered in Mandarin. Hello, Thomas Brooks speaking. The voice on the other end was Chen Wei, my former business partner from Beijing. Thomas, how are you? I'm calling about the quarterly dividends from the manufacturing partnership. We spoke for 5 minutes about business details, market conditions, and mutual contacts. I kept my voice low, but the conversation was entirely in fluent Mandarin. When I returned to the kitchen, Rosalind looked mildly annoyed. Spam call? Business matters, I said simply. I thought you were retired, Ryan said, confused. Some consulting work, nothing major. Rosalind rolled her eyes. Probably tech support or something. Dad, you really shouldn't answer those international scam calls. I nodded politely and returned to the flower catalogs. She had just dismissed a conversation about a 7-figure business partnership as a potential phone scam. The assumptions she was making about my capabilities were even worse than I'd realized. The second incident happened Friday when I was sorting mail at my kitchen counter. Ryan and Rosalind had stopped by for lunch, and I was reviewing the usual stack of correspondence, while Rosalind complained about wedding venue timing conflicts. Mixed in with utility bills and grocery store flyers were several business envelopes. One from Wells Fargo regarding investment portfolio performance, another from Brooks Software Solutions, LLC regarding quarterly tax filings, a third from Microsoft containing licensing renewal documentation. I set them aside casually, but Rosalind's eyes caught the Microsoft envelope. Dad, why is Microsoft sending you mail? Ryan asked. Some paperwork from the old consulting work, I said vaguely. Rosalind laughed. Let me guess, they're trying to sell you computer software? Something like that. Tom, you really need to be careful about those marketing schemes. Big companies send official-looking mail to get people to buy unnecessary services. She had just dismissed correspondence from Microsoft, the company that had acquired my software business for $12.3 million, as a marketing scam. Later that afternoon, after they left, I realized I'd left my home office door open. Business cards were scattered across my desk. Thomas Brooks, CEO, Brooks Software Solutions, LLC. My framed Software Innovation Award from the Texas Technology Council sat prominently on the shelf. Rosalind had walked right past all of it, so convinced of her assumptions that she didn't process what she was seeing. That evening, I made a decision about documentation. I started organizing everything systematically, not just Rosalind's Chinese insults, but evidence of the financial support I'd already provided Ryan. I pulled the Wells Fargo wire transfer receipt from March 15th. $180,000 transferred to Ryan Brooks for house down payment gift from Dad. The memo was clear, the amount was substantial, and Ryan had never mentioned it to Rosalind. I found the Capital One auto finance letter from September. Congratulations, your auto loan has been paid in full. $35,800 paid directly from my account to eliminate Ryan's car debt. Then I gathered the Microsoft acquisition documents. The business sale agreement signed August 14, 2019. Purchase price, $12.3 million for Brooks Software Solutions, LLC, and all associated intellectual property. My current Fidelity investment portfolio statement showed $8.7 million in various holdings. Conservative investments, steady growth, financial independence achieved years ago. I spread everything across my dining room table like pieces of a puzzle. The evidence told a story Rosalind couldn't imagine. Quiet generosity, hidden wealth, deliberate humility, and systematic documentation of disrespect. The irony was staggering. While Rosalind mocked my cheap peasant lifestyle in Chinese, I was reviewing bank statements that showed more money than she'd see in a lifetime. While she complained about my lack of sophistication, I was receiving business calls in the language she used to insult me. While she pressured Ryan to demand more financial support, I was looking at evidence that I'd already given him over $200,000 without expecting gratitude or recognition. But the most revealing document was a printout of Rosalind's Instagram post from 2 weeks earlier. When your future father-in-law thinks Olive Garden is fine dining, some people have zero class. She had publicly mocked me on social media while privately demanding that I fund her dream wedding. The pattern was clear. Rosalind felt entitled to my money but believed herself superior to my character. That weekend, I started preparing for a conversation that would test whether respect could be taught or whether it was already too late. Saturday evening, June 10th, 7 p.m. at Bella Vista Restaurant. Rosalind had arranged what she called a family celebration dinner to finalize wedding plans. Both families were invited. Myself, Rosalind's parents, Patricia and David Wright, and Vincent Chang, the wedding planner, who would present final contracts. I arrived first, taking a corner booth with clear sightlines to the parking lot. Old habit from business negotiations. Always know who's coming and going. Rosalind and Ryan arrived 15 minutes later, followed by the Wrights and Vincent. The table filled quickly with conversation about venue logistics, catering details, and honeymoon plans. Tom, Patricia Wright said warmly, we're so excited about this wedding. Rosalind has planned every detail perfectly. She certainly has strong opinions about what she wants, I replied. Rosalind shot me a look, but smiled sweetly. I just want everything to be special for Ryan. Vincent opened his leather portfolio. Let's review the final numbers. Bellaterra Gardens premium package, June 10th next year. Total investment, $150,000. He slid the contract across the table. We'll need a 50% deposit to secure the date, $75,000, due within 7 days. Rosalind turned to me expectantly. Tom, are you ready to make this official? I studied the contract carefully. Every line item was the maximum expense. Every upgrade was included. Every optional service was marked as essential. This is quite comprehensive, I said. Only the best for our son? David Wright added cheerfully. Rosalind leaned toward her mother, switching to what she thought was her secret language. This old man looks like a peasant. I kept reading the contract. Patricia laughed politely, not understanding but sensing Rosalind's tone. What did you say, honey? Just commenting on the restaurant's decor, Rosalind said smoothly. Vincent continued his presentation. The catering includes premium beef selections, fresh seafood, and a full premium bar service. The photography package covers engagement shots, wedding day, and reception. Sounds expensive, I said. Rosalind's patience was wearing thin. She turned to Ryan, speaking Chinese again. Cheap choice, cheap person. Rosalind, I said quietly, could you repeat that in English? She blinked, surprised. I was just commenting on the menu options. I see. What specifically about the menu concerned you? Ryan looked confused. Dad, she was talking about whether we wanted the salmon or the beef option for guests. I nodded. Of course. Vincent pulled out a timeline. For a June wedding, we recommend booking vendors by August. Floral design, live music, transportation, each requires deposits. Rosalind's frustration was building. The financial conversation wasn't going her direction. Her parents were present. Vincent was waiting for decisions. And I was asking questions instead of writing checks. She turned to Patricia again. Ryan, they should be ashamed to have such a father. Ryan should be ashamed of having such a father. The insult hit harder than the others, not just because of its cruelty, but because she said it in front of her own mother. She was performing her superiority, using a language barrier to mock me publicly while expecting me to fund her lifestyle. I set down the contract and looked directly at her. Rosalind, I said calmly in Chinese, I respect Chinese culture, but not disrespectful behavior. The table went silent. Rosalind's face went white. Patricia's mouth dropped open. Ryan stared between us, processing what had just happened. You, Rosalind stammered, you speak Chinese? Fluently, I replied in English. 5 years of business experience taught me a lot. Vincent Cheng looked genuinely impressed. Your pronunciation is excellent, Mr. Brooks. Where did you study? Beijing. I spent considerable time there expanding my software business. Rosalind was struggling to process this revelation. But you never... How was I supposed to know? You weren't supposed to know, I said quietly. That was rather the point. Patricia Wright looked mortified. Rosalind, what exactly have you been saying? Ryan leaned forward. Dad, how long have you understood what she was saying? 6 months, I said simply. Every word. The implications crashed over Rosalind like a wave. Every insult, every dismissive comment, every assumption about my ignorance had been understood and remembered. Tom, she said desperately, I can explain. Please do, I said. Explain to your mother what you called me tonight. Rosalind's eyes darted around the table. Everyone was staring at her, waiting. I didn't mean anything serious. Tell them what you said about Ryan being ashamed of his father. Patricia Wright's expression hardened. Rosalind Marie Wright, what did you say? I said Ryan should be ashamed of having such a father, Rosalind whispered. The silence stretched uncomfortably. Vincent cleared his throat. Ryan looked like he'd been punched in the stomach. 6 months of insults, I continued calmly. Cheap peasant, poor person mentality, shabby house, no class, completely selfish. The list is quite extensive. Dad, Ryan said quietly, I had no idea. Of course you didn't. She was careful to use a language she assumed I couldn't understand. Rosalind's composure cracked completely. Tom, I'm sorry.
I'm really, truly sorry. I never meant... You meant every word, I said. The question is why you felt comfortable saying them. Patricia Wright spoke up. Rosalind, this is absolutely unacceptable behavior. Apologize properly. I am apologizing. No, I said.
You're apologizing for getting caught. Vincent started gathering his papers, sensing the dinner was over. Wait, I said. Before everyone leaves, there are some things I think Ryan and Rosalind should know about this family's actual financial situation. I reached into my jacket and pulled out a manila envelope. Since Rosalind has strong opinions about my character, my lifestyle, and my ability to support my son's happiness, I thought it might be helpful to provide some context. Rosalind watched in growing horror as I spread documents across the table. Let's start with something simple, I said, sliding the first paper toward Ryan. Your house down payment from March 15th. Ryan picked up the Wells Fargo wire transfer receipt. His eyes widened as he read the amount. $180,000, I said quietly. Gift from Dad. The revelation was just beginning. Ryan stared at the wire transfer receipt like it was written in a foreign language. Dad, this says $180,000. That's correct. But I thought I had savings from work. You had $14,000 in savings, son. The rest came from me. Rosalind's face was cycling through confusion, shock, and dawning horror. Ryan, you told me you'd been saving for years. I thought I had, Ryan said weakly. Dad, why didn't you tell me this was so much money? Because I wanted you to feel proud of your achievement. Buying your first house is a milestone. The source of the down payment seemed less important than your readiness for homeownership. Vincent Chang watched this family drama unfold with professional fascination. Patricia Wright looked like she was witnessing a car accident in slow motion. I pulled out the second document. Here's another one you might find interesting. Capital One Auto Finance letterhead. Congratulations. Your auto loan has been paid in full. Your Honda Civic, I explained to Ryan. $35,800 paid off September 8th last year. Ryan's voice was barely a whisper. Dad, that was my loan. It was your car. I just eliminated the debt so you could focus on other financial goals. Rosalind was doing rapid mental calculations. That's over $200,000. $215,800 to be precise, I said. But we're not finished. The third document made Patricia Wright gasp audibly. Microsoft Corporation blazed across the letterhead in corporate blue. Business Acquisition Agreement, I read aloud. Brooks Software Solutions, LLC, sold to Microsoft Corporation. Purchase price, $12.3 million. Closing date, August 14th, 2019. The table fell silent, except for the soft jazz music playing from the restaurant's speakers. Vincent Chang spoke first. Mr. Brooks, you owned a software company. I built it from our garage in 1998. Started with database management systems for small businesses. Expanded into enterprise solutions. When Microsoft expressed acquisition interest, the timing felt right. Ryan was staring at me like I was a stranger. Dad, you never said anything about selling to Microsoft. You never asked about my work history, and frankly, it didn't seem relevant to daily life. Rosalind found her voice. $12 million? $12.3 million before taxes and legal fees. Net proceeds were approximately $8.7 million. I pulled out my current Fidelity investment statement. Current portfolio value, $8,700,000 as of last Friday's close. The numbers hung in the air like smoke. Patricia Wright broke the silence. Tom, I had no idea. Rosalind certainly never mentioned. Rosalind didn't know, I said simply. Because she never asked. She looked at my 10-year-old Honda Civic and assumed I couldn't afford better. She saw my modest house and concluded I had modest means. She observed my practical lifestyle and decided I lacked sophistication. Rosalind was struggling to process this information. But if you have all this money, why do you live so simply? Because money is a tool, not a lifestyle. Because flashy displays of wealth attract people for the wrong reasons. Because I wanted to know that people respected me for who I am, not what I have. But Ryan, she said desperately, you could have told me your father was successful. I didn't know, Ryan said quietly. I thought Dad worked at some computer company and had decent savings. Vincent Chang cleared his throat diplomatically. Mr. Brooks, With this level of financial capability, you could certainly afford any wedding package we offer. Affordability was never the issue, I said. The issue was whether the request came with respect or with entitlement. I pulled out the final document, a printout of Rosalind's Instagram post from 2 weeks earlier. This is from Rosalind's social media account, I read aloud. When your future father-in-law thinks Olive Garden is fine dining, some people have zero class. Hashtag wedding planning. Hashtag family drama. Hashtag settling for less. Rosalind's face flushed deep red. Tom, I can explain that. Please do. Explain to everyone how someone with zero class managed to build a multi-million-dollar business and sell it to one of the world's largest technology companies. Patricia Wright looked mortified. Rosalind, you posted that publicly. I was frustrated. I didn't know. You thought I was a cheap, unsophisticated peasant who didn't understand your sophisticated needs, I said calmly. You spent 6 months expressing that opinion in Chinese, assuming I was too ignorant to understand. Ryan finally spoke up. Dad, I'm so sorry. I had no idea she was saying those things. I know you didn't, son, but I need you to understand something important. Rosalind didn't just insult me. She insulted your judgment in choosing to love someone from our family. She implied that you deserve better than what your background could provide. Rosalind tried one more desperate explanation. Tom, I was wrong. I completely misunderstood your situation, but I do love Ryan and I do want to be part of this family. Based on what evidence? I asked. Based on who Ryan is, on who we are together. For 6 months, you mocked his father in a language you thought I couldn't understand. You publicly ridiculed our family on social media. You demanded financial support while showing no gratitude for what had already been given. That's your definition of love? Vincent Chang was quietly packing his materials, clearly uncomfortable with the family confrontation. Mr. Chang, I said, before you leave, could you clarify something about the wedding contract? Of course, Mr. Brooks. The $75,000 deposit. In whose name would that be held? Vincent consulted his paperwork. The contract shows the responsible party as Thomas Brooks. All deposits and final payments would come from your account. I see. And the cancellation policy? Full refund if canceled more than 90 days before the event date. Since we're 13 months out, there would be no penalty. Rosalind's eyes went wide. Tom, you're not seriously considering... I'm seriously considering whether this family should invest $150,000 in a wedding for someone who fundamentally disrespects what this family represents. Ryan looked torn between his father and his fiancée. Dad, people make mistakes. Rosalind made mistakes. But we love each other. Love requires respect, son. Respect for each other and respect for the families you're joining. For 6 months, Rosalind has shown the opposite of respect. I gathered the documents back into the envelope. Here's what's going to happen. I'm withdrawing financial support for this wedding. Rosalind gasped. Tom, please don't do this. The decision has already been made. Ryan, you and Rosalind can have whatever wedding you can afford together. But this family will not fund a celebration of someone who spent 6 months mocking our character and our values. The table sat in stunned silence. However, I continued, our relationship going forward doesn't have to be defined by this moment. Rosalind, you have a choice. You can earn respect through your actions, or you can continue believing you're entitled to it through Ryan's connection to me. I stood up from the table. The documents speak for themselves. The choice is yours. The silence stretched for nearly 30 seconds. Vincent Chang finished packing his portfolio and stood diplomatically. Mr. Brooks, I'll hold the contract pending further discussion between your family. No deposits will be processed until I hear from you directly. Thank you, Vincent. I'll be in touch within the week. After he left, Rosalind finally found her voice. Tom, please reconsider. I know I made terrible mistakes, but I can change. I can do better. Change how? I asked calmly. I'll never speak Chinese around you again. I'll delete that Instagram post. I'll apologize to everyone. Rosalind, you're still missing the point. Patricia Wright leaned forward. Tom, what would it take for you to reconsider your decision? I sat back down, choosing my words carefully. It's not about what Rosalind says going forward. It's about what she revealed about her character over the past 6 months. People can change, Ryan said desperately. They can. But change requires understanding what was wrong in the first place. Rosalind, do you understand why your behavior was problematic? She nodded eagerly. I was disrespectful. I made assumptions. I was ungrateful. Those are accurate observations, but why did you feel comfortable behaving that way? Rosalind hesitated, sensing a trap. I thought you wouldn't understand? Try again. I thought you couldn't afford what we wanted? Keep going. Her voice got smaller. I thought you were beneath my family's standards. There it is, I said quietly. You believed you were superior to me, not just financially, but fundamentally, as a person. Ryan looked shocked. Rosalind, is that true? I was wrong, she said quickly. Completely wrong. I see that now. Do you? I asked. Or do you just see that you misjudged my financial situation? Patricia Wright intervened. Rosalind, answer honestly. Rosalind struggled for several moments. I thought Ryan deserved someone who could provide better opportunities, more sophistication, more status. And you believed I was holding him back from those things? Yes, she whispered, because I drive an older car, live in a modest house, and don't display wealth ostentatiously. Yes. So your respect was conditional on visible signs of success? She nodded miserably. Rosalind, I said gently, that's exactly why I can't support this wedding. Ryan looked confused. Dad, she understands now. She knows she was wrong. Son, she understands that her assessment of my financial capabilities was incorrect, but she hasn't grasped why her approach to respect and character was fundamentally flawed. I turned to Rosalind. Let me ask you something. If I had driven a BMW instead of a Honda, would you have spoken to me differently? Probably, she admitted. If I lived in a mansion instead of a suburban house, would you have respected me more? Yes. If I had bragged about my business success instead of staying humble, would you have treated me better? Yes. Then you still don't understand the problem. Patricia Wright looked embarrassed by her daughter's responses. Rosalind, you're not helping your case. Tom, Rosalind said, tears starting, I was raised to value success and ambition. I thought those things were important. They are important, I replied. But they're not more important than character, and character isn't determined by how much money someone displays. Ryan was processing this slowly. Dad, are you saying the wedding is definitely canceled? I'm saying that I won't fund a wedding between my son and someone who judges people by their possessions rather than their principles. But what if Rosalind really changes? Then she and I can build a respectful relationship over time, but that relationship doesn't require a $150,000 wedding to start. Rosalind tried a different approach. Tom, what if we scale back the wedding? Made it smaller, less expensive? The budget was never the real issue, Rosalind. A $10,000 wedding with the wrong attitude is still wrong. A $100,000 wedding with mutual respect is still right. So what do you want from me? I want you to understand that respect isn't earned through wealth display. I want you to appreciate that humility isn't weakness. I want you to value character over status. David Wright, who had been silent throughout the confrontation, finally spoke. Tom, I think you're being reasonable. Rosalind needs to learn some important lessons. Patricia nodded. We raised her to be ambitious, but maybe we didn't emphasize respect enough. Rosalind looked around the table, realizing she was losing allies. Everyone is ganging up on me. No one is ganging up on you, I said firmly. We're trying to help you understand why your behavior was harmful. Fine, she snapped.
I get it. I was wrong about everything. Are you happy now? The anger in her voice revealed the truth. She wasn't sorry for her disrespect. She was angry about being caught and embarrassed about losing the wedding funding. Ryan heard it too. Rosalind, that's not the right attitude. What attitude am I supposed to have? I already apologized. I already admitted I was wrong. What more does everyone want? Genuine remorse, Patricia said quietly. Not just regret about consequences. I stood up again. I think this conversation has run its course. Tom, please, Rosalind said desperately. I'll do anything to make this right. The way to make this right is to spend the next year demonstrating respect, gratitude, and genuine appreciation for this family. Not because of what we can provide, but because of who we are. And then you'll pay for the wedding? Her immediate focus on the money confirmed everything I suspected about her priorities.
Rosalind, I said sadly, you just proved my point. I left cash on the table to cover dinner and walked toward the exit. "Ryan," I called back, "you have my phone number when you're ready to talk." The last thing I heard was Rosalind crying and Patricia Wright saying, "Honey, you brought this on yourself." The next 48 hours proved that actions have consequences far beyond immediate family. Sunday morning, my phone started ringing. The first call came from my sister Janet in Phoenix. "Tom, I just got off the phone with Patricia Wright. She told me everything that happened at dinner. I'm so sorry you went through that. How did Patricia get your number?" "She asked Ryan for it. She wanted to apologize to the entire family for Rosalind's behavior." By noon, I'd received similar calls from my brother Mark, my cousin Susan, and 2 family friends who had heard the story secondhand. Word travels fast in close families, and Rosalind's behavior had shocked everyone. "Tom," Mark said during his call, "I've been wondering for months why Ryan seemed different. Now it makes sense. She was poisoning his attitude toward all of us." Monday morning brought more surprises. I was having coffee when Ryan knocked on my door. "Dad, we need to talk." He looked exhausted, dark circles under his eyes, wrinkled clothes, the appearance of someone who hadn't slept. "Come in, son." We sat in my living room, the same space where Rosalind had mocked my shabby furniture just months earlier. "Rosalind and I had a long conversation yesterday," Ryan began. "Several long conversations, actually." "I imagine you did." "Dad, I owe you an enormous apology, not just for her behavior, but for my own." I waited for him to continue. "I've been taking your generosity for granted for years. The house down payment, the car loan, all the smaller things you've done. I somehow convinced myself I'd earned those things through my own hard work." "You did work hard, Ryan. Your career success is your own achievement. But my lifestyle wasn't sustainable on my salary alone. You made it possible, and I never acknowledged that. You weren't supposed to feel burdened by gratitude, son. Parents help their children. That's normal. But children should recognize and appreciate that help. I didn't. And worse, I let Rosalind convince me that you weren't doing enough." He paused, struggling with the next part. "Dad, she broke up with me yesterday." I felt a complex mix of relief and sadness. Relief that Ryan wouldn't marry someone who fundamentally disrespected our family. Sadness that my son was hurting. "I'm sorry, Ryan. Breakups are painful, even when they're necessary. She said I was choosing you over her. She said if I really loved her, I would demand that you pay for the wedding regardless of her mistakes." "What did you tell her?" "I told her that demanding respect through ultimatums isn't love. I told her that if she couldn't appreciate the man who raised me, she didn't really understand who I am." I felt proud of my son for the first time in months. "Dad, there's something else. I found out more about what she'd been saying." Ryan pulled out his phone. "She sent screenshots of Chinese insults to her friend Jenna, with English translations. She thought it was funny that she could mock you to your face. The screenshots were worse than I'd imagined. Not just the insults I'd overheard, but detailed mockery of my clothes, my car, my house, my conversation topics. Rosalind had been performing my humiliation for her friend's entertainment. Ryan, I'm sorry you had to see that. I'm sorry I didn't see it sooner. I'm sorry I didn't defend you. I'm sorry I let her change how I thought about our family." We talked for 2 hours. Ryan told me how Rosalind had gradually isolated him from family gatherings, convincing him that our traditions were boring and our expectations were unreasonable. She'd planted seeds of resentment about perceived childhood slights, encouraged him to interpret my practical parenting as emotional distance. "She had me believing that you didn't really care about my happiness," Ryan said, "that you were just going through the motions of being supportive." "What changed your mind?" "Saturday night, when I saw those bank statements, when I realized you'd given me over $200,000 without ever mentioning it, without ever making me feel guilty about it, without ever using it as leverage to control my decisions." He shook his head. "That's not the behavior of someone who doesn't care. That's the behavior of someone who cares so much that he puts his child's independence ahead of his own recognition." Tuesday, I received an unexpected call from Vincent Chang. "Mr. Brooks, I wanted to follow up on Saturday's events. I've worked in wedding planning for 15 years, and I've never seen anything quite like that. I imagine it was awkward for you professionally. Actually, it was educational. I deal with family financial stress constantly, but this was different. This was about respect and character. Vincent paused. Mr. Brooks, I have other clients who might benefit from seeing what quiet dignity looks like under pressure. Would you be willing to serve as a reference for how to handle entitled behavior? I was surprised by the request. I'm not sure I'm the right person for that role, Vincent. You responded to months of public disrespect with calm evidence presentation. You set clear boundaries without vindictive behavior. You protected your son's autonomy while still maintaining your principles. That's exactly the kind of guidance some families need. Wednesday brought the most surprising consequence of all. Rosalind called. Rosalind.
Tom, I need to talk to you. I'm listening. I've been thinking about what you said about character versus status, about respect versus entitlement. And I think you were right about everything. Her voice was different, smaller, less performative. Rosalind, I appreciate you calling. Tom, I lost Ryan. I lost the wedding. I embarrassed my family. And I'm starting to understand that I lost those things because of who I chose to be, not because of what you chose to do. That's a mature perspective. I don't expect forgiveness. I don't expect another chance. But I wanted you to know that your actions taught me something important about consequences. After she hung up, I realized that justice served with principles instead of vengeance had achieved something unexpected, actual learning instead of just punishment. 3 months later, Ryan and I were having our regular Sunday dinner when he brought up a question I'd been expecting.
Dad, do you think I'll ever be able to trust my judgment about relationships again? I set down my fork, considering the question carefully. What makes you doubt your judgment? I was with Rosalind for 3 years. I was planning to marry her. How did I miss something so fundamental about her character? Love can create blind spots, son. That's normal. The question is what you learned from the experience. Ryan had spent the summer in therapy, working through patterns of people-pleasing and conflict avoidance that had made him vulnerable to manipulation. He'd also started asking direct questions about family history, our values, and the experiences that shaped my approach to money and relationships. I learned that I was afraid of disappointing people, he said, so afraid that I went along with things I knew were wrong. Such as, Rosalind's complaints about you. Even when they felt unfair, I didn't challenge them because challenging them would have created conflict.
And now? Now I understand that avoiding conflict isn't the same as maintaining harmony. Real harmony requires addressing problems honestly. Over the past 3 months, Ryan had rebuilt his relationship with extended family members, reconnected with friends he'd drifted away from during his relationship with Rosalind, and started dating someone new carefully, with clear boundaries and open communication about values. Dad, I have a confession. I'm listening. Part of me is grateful that Rosalind showed her true character before the wedding instead of after. That's not something you need to feel guilty about, Ryan. I keep thinking about what would have happened if you'd paid for the wedding without saying anything. If you just absorbed her disrespect and enabled the behavior, what do you think would have happened? She would have gotten worse. The insults would have escalated. The demands would have increased. And eventually I would have had to choose between my wife and my family. We sat quietly for a moment, both understanding how close we'd come to a much more painful outcome. Dad, there's something I want to ask you. Go ahead. The money you've given me over the years, I want to understand the terms. I raised an eyebrow. Terms? I mean, do you consider those gifts or loans or investments? Do you expect anything in return? I consider them investments in your future. The return I expect is for you to build a good life, make thoughtful decisions, and treat people with respect. That's it? That's everything, son. Ryan smiled. Dad, I want to set up a monthly dinner schedule, not because I feel obligated, but because I've realized how much I value our conversations. I'd like that. And Dad, I want to learn more about your business experience, about the decisions you made that led to success, about the mistakes you made along the way.
Business mentoring, life mentoring. I want to understand how you developed the quiet confidence to handle someone like Rosalind without losing your temper or compromising your principles. I thought about Jennifer, who would have been proud of the man our son was becoming, about the importance of teaching respect through example rather than demand, about the difference between earning love and purchasing compliance. Ryan, The most important lesson I can share is this: never let someone else's opinion of your worth become your opinion of yourself. Even when they speak a language they think you don't understand, especially then. We finished dinner and planned our next week's conversation. As Ryan left, he turned back with one final thought. Dad, thank you for caring enough about my future to risk our relationship in the present. Sometimes the most loving thing a parent can do is refuse to enable behavior that will ultimately harm their child. Respect cannot be purchased, but it can be taught. Character cannot be demanded, but it can be demonstrated. And sometimes the hardest conversations lead to the strongest foundations. Have you ever been underestimated based on appearance or assumptions? Share your story in the comments below.